Why do some kids get really upset at school, but others can stay calm?
That's a really good question, Eli. It's a lot of times it has to do with how kids are feeling when they come to school to begin with. That's a big part of it. The thing to remember is that everybody's brain develops a little bit differently, and all of our brains are really incredible, and they're doing incredible things for us all the time. And the way our brains grow and develop, they're trying to adapt or change to be able to respond to the environment that they're in. And so some of our brains develop in an environment where there are all the caring and nurturing things they need, and going on into the future, that kind of helps us be able to stay calm in a lot of different situations. And then some kids struggle and don't maybe have some of the same experiences, or their brains are trying to respond to environments or things that are a little bit more stressful earlier in their lives. And it's called being sensitized, and their brains are a little bit more sensitive to stress. And so when they come to school, sometimes their ability to come there feeling calm or safe it's a lot harder for them to feel that way than it is for some kids. And so they might come into the classroom and things that other kids are being able to cope with, like maybe having a substitute teacher that day, that might be something that you'd go into a classroom and say, okay, well, there's a new teacher here today, and it's not the same as I'm used to, but I'm gonna, give this guy, I'm gonna be okay with him because he seems like a nice guy, and I'm gonna sit in my desk and just see how it goes. And then another child who maybe is a little bit more sensitive in a different way with their stress system might come in and say, whoa, like here's somebody that I've never seen before, that's sending me into the alarm zone. And then that teacher might say, okay, well, instead of starting with the usual thing we start with, we're gonna start with something totally different and do a spelling quiz. And you might not like that, but you're able to sit there and say, okay, well, we'll do a spelling quiz. Well, this other child, that sends them over the edge with stress, and they're struggling, and they flip their desk over, and they run out of the classroom, and everybody's wondering what happened here. And it's not because that child wanted to come to school and cause anybody problems, or because they're trying to be bad, because we believe, and all the teachers we work with believe, that every kid does well when they're able to. It's because their stress system told them that there's a big problem here, because their brain's incredible and it was trying to protect them, even though it was only a different teacher. And so that's what happens in the classroom to kids sometimes. Some kids are able to stay regulated and get through that, and then some kids are a little bit more sensitive. And so that is a big part of what we're going to be working with teachers and kids to understand in the classroom. It's kind of just helping them understand each other a little bit more.
And the trick with this too is that what's going on inside can be very invisible. So the child's sitting in their desk, they look like they're going to be able to manage the change of the teacher or some kind of stressful thing that happens, but inside they're feeling really overwhelmed. But on the outside they look perfectly calm, and then that one little thing happens and that kid flips out and people didn't see it coming. So that's one of the things we're talking a lot to teachers about, is how to read those little things that maybe they didn't notice. That kid maybe was giving them some signs that things were not feeling okay, and it might help prevent some of those big meltdowns. Yeah. And also sometimes kids don't have the meltdown. They go into this daydreamy kind of, almost look like they're half asleep, and then they miss the whole lesson. And when it's time to do their work, they don't know what to do, and they also get upset. So we're teaching teachers to be super detectives about looking for those cues. And teachers are busy, and their job is tricky. So sometimes they know it, but they just forget to do it. So we're just working on that too. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
And another thing that can happen is that sometimes a student can come into a classroom and there can be little things, and Jan was talking about cues. Well, there can be these tiny little things that can happen in the interaction between the teacher and the student, or even, I know that there was a student once a long time ago I knew where there was a certain song playing in the classroom, and it was just a Christmas song, but for some reason this song was so upsetting for this student that the student really had a hard time, and everybody was thinking, why is the student acting this way? What is the big problem? And we figured out later that this song was something that the student kind of had a connection with something that was not very nice in their lives around. And so it really brought up a lot for them in the classroom. So that's what the super detective work is that Jan's talking about as well. It's kind of looking for these things that can be really challenging for kids and making it hard for them, and not just kind of thinking that a child is behaving badly for no reason, because there's usually always some reason behind kids having a hard time like that.
It's almost like we're taking a look inside the brain and trying to figure out what is driving that, what's making that. It's like the computer system that's making somebody do something, and we're trying to work with teachers and principals and all the people that work in schools to try and, it's like looking under the hood of a car to try and figure out what's making that noise in my car, what's making this car not work very well. And that's kind of understanding the brain. So we talk a lot about what the brain does and what it means in a school.